Hello, welcome to my stream. Thanks for joining in. Today I want to show you how to use the JavaScript programming language. So I'm going to start from the very basics. You don't need any previous experience. And what I'm hoping to do is walk you through the process to build a very, very tiny and maybe a little bit useful app. But you've got to start somewhere. So before I do start though, these streams are all live and they're quite improvised. So I haven't actually built what I'm going to build yet. So I can't show you the finished product. But what I'm going to do is I'll show you what I'm planning on building. So let me just open up this website. So if you haven't seen this before, this is a flowchart for, or kind of topical at the moment, I guess. It's this is for the Tokyo government's coronavirus flowchart. So the first time I saw this, I was like, this is kind of hard to read. Because it's like, where are all these arrows going? And so what I want to do is I want to build a little app which asks you these questions one at a time and shows you what to do. So with that in mind, let's get started. So the first thing you're going to need is you're going to need a text editor. If you've already got a text editor, you can use whichever text editor you want. If you don't, you probably want to install VS Code. So if you just Google for VS Code, Visual Studio Code, you can download that and install it. And I'll let you do that if you haven't already, or if you haven't got another text editor. I've already got it, so I'm just going to open it up. And let me open up a new project. And, well, I'm going to create a new directory, actually. A new directory for the code. Because code is just like any other type of document. You've got to put it in a file on your computer. So let me create a new folder to put all this in. This is episode 3, so I'm going to create an episode 3 file. And then I'm going to open episode 3 folder, and then I'll open that in VS Code. And there we go. Okay. Now, if you have any questions and you're watching live, then I'm looking at the chat. I try and glance at the chat every now and then. It's on a different screen, but I'll try and answer any questions you've got. So anyway, I'm going to start by creating a file. So if I right-click in this area here, then I'll create a new file. And I'm going to create a HTML file. I'm going to call it index.html. And if you watched the first episode, this might be a little bit familiar. I've already created a file like this, but I'm going to create another one. And you'll see that as I created the file over here, it appears here as well in the Finder. So if you're using Windows, it'll appear in whatever the equivalent is there. And just like I did a couple episodes ago, I'm going to type out hello world in the file. I'm going to save it and then open that file in Safari. Okay, so that's a very simple little web page. All I needed to do was create a file, an index.html file, open it in Safari, and basically the text appears. Now, as I explained again in a previous episode, we can add tags to a page. So for example, I can wrap this hello world in a bracket h1 and then the same thing with a slash before it. And that's going to tell the browser, it's going to tell Safari that this is a heading. That's what h1 stands for. And as I showed you before, we've got h1 all the way through to h6, and these are all different things. There's lots of different types of tags. But there's one special tag that I want to focus on today, and that is the script tag. So let me add a script tag to this app, or this web page, I should say. I'm going to save the file and refresh the page, and well, nothing has happened, but nothing happens just like, I guess, if I have a div tag, which I think I've showed you in a previous episode. If I add a div tag, nothing happens. But there is one interesting thing about the script tag, is if I type stuff in here, nothing changes as well. If I type something in the div tag, something changes. But the script tag is special. But let me try typing something else. So instead of just typing random letters in this script tag, I'm going to type something special. I'm going to type alert, then bracket, then 1, and then a closing bracket, and then a semicolon. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to refresh this page using the keyboard. And okay, this is interesting. By typing alert 1, a little box has popped up in the page, and it's got the number 1 in it, and I can click close. So what's happened here is I've actually just added a script. I've added some code to the HTML, or to the web page, which is quite different to the rest of the code. So where the rest of the code, everything inside of it, like where tags contain code which tells the browser how to display things, scripts tell the browser how to do different things. So there's actually a bunch of different things that you can do. Alert is one of them. Another one you can do is confirm. So if you type confirm, and then again open bracket, and this time we're going to put some stuff in quotes, and then a close bracket and a semicolon, and then I can type something in here. So I can type, for example, you learning programming. Okay, I'm gonna save that and then come over here and refresh the page, again using my keyboard. And this time the browser, Safari, asks me a question. It says, are you learning programming? And it gives me two options. It says I can cancel, or I can click OK. And in fact, we can have more than one thing within the script tag. We can have confirm, and I can also have alert as well. So for example, instead of putting a number within these brackets here, I can put something like this, which is called a string in alert as well. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to say, I am going to ask you some questions. I'm going to save that, and I'll refresh the page. And so now the page says, I am going to ask you some questions. Close. Are you learning programming? Okay. So unfortunately, one thing is we can't change what is in these buttons. It's going to say cancel or OK in Safari. It might say something else in a different browser. These are the only two options we've got, but that's okay for now. So yeah, I can make quite interesting, well, I don't know how interesting they are. You can get the browser to ask or say whatever you'd like. Of course, this isn't very useful. So let's try and make it a little bit more useful. And to do that, what I want to do is I want to make it so depending on which button someone clicks, I want to display a different answer or a different question or a different statement. And so to do that, I'll show you another thing we can do here, which is that when I ask a question, I can get the result of that question, and I can do something with it by this little piece of code here. I can say const answer 1 equals confirm, and then this string, are you learning programming? So if you type this in and you save it and you refresh the page, then the same thing will happen. Well, exactly the same thing will happen. The interesting thing is what this does is it stores the answer. So it stores the answer in this thing called answer1. You can kind of imagine that this is like a box which can hold a yes or a no. And then what you can do is you can tell the browser that you'd like to do something different depending on whether answer1 is true, or whether answer1 is okay, or whether someone clicked cancel. So I'll show you how to do that. I can type in if, and then use these brackets again. You'll see that a lot in programming. If answer1 equals, you need 2 equals here, and then true, then I'll do the same thing that I did earlier. I'll do an alert, and I'll say, actually, let me remove these angle brackets. Sorry, the curly brackets. I'll just keep it as simple as possible first. And else, this means if otherwise. Okay, so let me save this and run it, and you'll see how this works. And then I'm going to explain it in a little bit more detail. So I'll refresh the page, and it asks a question like it was doing before. Are you learning programming? If I click OK, I am. Then the browser says, great, awesome, you're learning programming. And close. And if I refresh again and I do the other button, are you learning programming? Cancel, which means no. Just imagine it means no. Damn, well you should, and you should learn programming because it's a very useful thing to know how to do. So you can see that depending, well, yeah, you can see right here that depending on the button I click, the answer is different. And the reason is because the answer is being stored here, and then using this, what you call an if-else statement, you can decide the next line that you want to execute. You can decide the next thing that you want the browser to do based on the value which is stored in here. And so this answer 1, you might think that answer 1 is, well, it has to be called answer 1 because we're asking a question, but you know, you can call this anything. So this is not a special word here. We could say X. You can store the result in X and get the same behavior. This word here, const, though, this is special. What this says is basically that this is a box that we're going to store a value in, and once we've stored that value, which is true or false, then it won't change anymore. So I might go into a little bit more about what this means at a later point in time, but using this already, I think it should be possible to implement that flowchart that you saw earlier on, the Tokyo government coronavirus flowchart. So let's actually give that a shot. I'm going to give that a shot. You can try too if you want. If you're watching this later on, you can just pause it and try and do this yourself. So I'm going to start. If the following conditions apply to you in the 2 weeks. Have you been in close contact or have you traveled? So I'm just going to do this in shorthand. So first I'm going to ask, actually no, let me look at this. This is really confusing. So if any of these conditions are met, then they want you to call the call center. Or if you feel anxious, slight fever, slight cough, if you're, yep, there's lots of different reasons to call the call center. So basically, let's just start with, is anything out of the unusual? I think I'm just going to summarize this by asking, is anything out of the unusual? Now, I can make a much more detailed one down the track, but I'm just going to start with something simple. Is anything out of the unusual with your health? And I'll put this in unusual. I'm going to call this constant. It's called, or variable. This is a constant. I'm going to call this constant unusual, and I'm going to change this here. And if unusual is true, then please call the hotline on this number here. And if not, please don't call the hotline. Oh, well, we don't need to say that. Carry on then. Okay, so I can come back here and refresh the page. Is anything out of the unusual with your health? Okay, remember this means yes. Please call the hotline on this. Cancel. carry on then. Okay, and actually I can get rid of this hello world. We don't need the hello world to be up here. So I'll save that, I'll refresh the page. There we go, it's gone. Okay, so let's go back to this flowchart and see what the next thing is. Following consultation through coronavirus hotline. Decision that examination at a COVID-19 outpatient facility is necessary. I see. So did the doctor, so basically I can ask, did the doctor require that you are tested? And so I'm going to ask another question. And the way I can do this is, you may have saw earlier on I had some little curly braces here. I can put these curly braces around the alert statement, and this lets me put multiple instructions in response to this condition. So after the alert, I can put another confirm. I can say, did the doctor require you to be tested? And let me save that so you can see that it works. Is anything out of the unusual, out of the ordinary? This is not an English lesson, I guess. If you have, okay, yes, please call the hotline. And then, did the doctor require you to be tested? Well, I haven't put an answer for that yet. So let me just actually show you what happens though if I remove the braces. Well, you can see that the editor has put a squiggly line under it because it thinks there's something wrong here. And in fact, there is something wrong here. You can't even do this because in the case where you don't have the curly brace, the else has to come the else has to come after one instruction. It can't come after two instructions. So this doesn't. This is not valid JavaScript. This is kind of like using grammatically incorrect English, or basically the computer doesn't understand it. So you have to wrap these multiple instructions in curly braces so that the computer can understand it. And you'll notice that when something didn't go right, this page didn't display anything. So it didn't get to here and then stop. It actually just didn't display anything at all. And I'll talk more about why that is in another time. But for the moment, I'm just going to keep going with this example. And so let me try and put a response to this question as well. So I'm going to type const unusual. Well, this one is not called unusual, but let me just show you what happens if I call this one unusual as well. Actually this will work, so I won't show you what will happen. If you use two constants with the same name right next to each other, it won't work, but inside the if statement it'll work, so just ignore me. Did the doctor require to be tested? Require test. I'm going to call this one require test. And the reason I've named it with a capital here is because you can't put a space between this, and the editor will often tell you that's the case. So we just want to keep it all as one word, kind of like with a domain name or a bunch of other things like that. And then I can just do the same thing. I can say if require test equals to true, then alert. What are we going to tell the user? We're going to say, well, instead of alerting, we can actually ask another question. What was your What was your PCR test result? And otherwise, and actually I'll put a brace around here as well, just for consistency. I like to put braces around all of the instructions that are executed in response to if and else. So here we go, alert You are not required to be tested. Huh. Let's just say great. Carry on then. And let me try reloading this again. Is anything out of the unusual with your health? Okay for yes. Please call the hotline on that. And then did the doctor require you to be tested? Cancel for no. Carry on then. And let's test this other one as well. Okay for yes. What was your PCR test result? So we're getting there. And then in response to this, I want to say, let's have a look. What do we do now? Negative. Please see a doctor. You must be hospitalized is basically the two things. Because I guess at this point they feel like something is wrong because they don't test you otherwise. And here it's like, well, we need to quarantine you. So if result equals true for positive, needs to be, I'm just going to copy the text on this. This is not a very easy way to say this. Else please consult with a doctor. General practitioner, not that we have them here in Japan, but that's okay. I can't even spell it. Practitioner, there we go. So I can save this, I can refresh the page. Did the doctor require to be tested? Okay for yes. Yeah, okay, so this all works. So that's a very simple program. Now let me just show you a few things though that I can do to simplify this. So I'm going to start by showing you a shortcut here. Instead of saying if unusual equals true, I can actually remove the equals true and this will still work. It means exactly the same thing. Usually what you'd be doing is you'd be checking how the if statement works is it checks to see if the expression, the stuff inside this bracket is true. So this is a little bit hard to explain right now, but basically you can, instead of checking if it equals to true, you can just put this here and you're comparing the value of unusual to true automatically. So that works. And I can refresh this and you'll see that it still works. Okay. And sometimes these alert dialogues, they can keep being displayed after you've refreshed, which is why you saw it working a little bit funny there. So you'll see that this all still works. Okay. Now, there's another interesting thing you can do here is I can simplify. You can see that I've used this message twice. This carry on then message. So maybe we don't want to have to write the same thing out twice. Maybe we want to be able to write the message once and reuse that in multiple places. And so we can actually do that using this same const thing here. We can say const carry on message. And instead of putting the result of a dialogue into this constant, this box, we can put a string. Remember, a string is what we call this string of letters within the quotes. So what I'm saying here is the value of, when you see the value carry on message, or where you see carry on message somewhere, its value is going to be this. Just like where you see unusual somewhere, or where you see required test somewhere, the value is going to be true or false based on the result of the dialog. So you might be able to see what I'm going to do with this. Basically, I'm going to pass this, we call this passing, to the alert function. So alert and confirm are two functions, we call them. They're the things that you can call, and you can pass things to them. So if I save this and refresh, you'll see that carry on then, even though I haven't passed it directly to alert, is still the message which is displayed. Okay, so there you have it. It's a very simple flowchart using JavaScript's basics to walk you through this page. Now, obviously, there's a lot more that could be added to this. For example, if I have a look at this box here, it gives different rules based on who you are. So if you're a general population, it wants you to have these symptoms for 4 days before calling the doctor. Whereas if you're a senior citizen, people with underlying health conditions, or pregnant women, it wants you to call the hotline after 2 days. So maybe that's something you'd like to try and implement yourself. Maybe you could try to, instead of just asking, is anything out of the unusual with your health, you could see if you can make this whole thing, you can see if you could add this question right at the start, and add questions again for things like this, and add these questions up here. It should be possible to implement this whole flow using just if, else, alert, confirm, and const. So if you'd like to give it a shot, then maybe that's something you can give a go at. And if you get stuck, or if you want me to have a look at your answer, then just leave a comment or send me a message on Twitter. I'll post my Twitter in the description, and I'll have a look over it for you. But that's it for me tonight. It's almost 30 minutes, and I try and keep these under 30 minutes. So thanks again for watching. Keep safe, and I hope to see you next time.